Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Classic rock band Three Dog Night rocks the Birchmere this weekend in Alexandria, Virginia. I spoke with founder and lead singer Danny Hutton about the band's biggest hits from Joy to the World to Mama Told Me. Hey, Danny, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Well, you're welcome. And I love it here. We're in Annapolis, and it's just gorgeous, and it's very happening. I was very surprised. We usually come in the back door of this place we're playing, and I never realized we stayed in a hotel. The front of it is, it's a beautiful little area.
Right, because you're playing Ram's Head, Annapolis, and then Saturday you're playing the Birchmere.
Yeah, we're playing the Birchmere. Probably anybody that's coming to it as my favorite kitchen, the soul food. It's wonderful, and backstage it's just full. When you walk down the hall, it's about every artist that I love has played here.
Oh yeah, all the pictures on the wall. That's what makes it so cool, is all the history. Yeah.
Like Randy Newman is playing a gig. It's got to be interesting because Randy is he's the best way. He's a curmudgeon. You better have it right, or he's going to give you his wrath.
Whereas with you, it's a different story.
well, we're really loose. A lot of groups have 4 tour buses, and they all travel separately, and all of that stuff, and they all have different rooms. They don't talk to each other. And we're everybody gets along great. There's no prima donnas. And even when we do symphony shows with Larry Baird, who used to conduct the Moody Blues, he would change in our dressing room too. We all just would hang together. So it's I've been doing this over 50 years with this band, and this is a great bunch of guys. Everybody, especially after the pandemic, everybody we'd leave the stage and all do high fives, and it's like I feel like a young bunch of guys. It's cool.
Awesome. Yeah, you brought it up. Speaking of the pandemic, I know, gosh, these shows, I've been wanting to cover these shows for over a year now. It keeps getting rescheduled. So how exciting is it finally to finally get back on the road? Like, I guess, where are you in your tour? Like, when did you guys finally start touring again?
We did this bizarre thing about 3 or 4 months into it where we did one of those drive-in things with a bunch of cars and stuff. And I didn't like it because no one allowed backstage. Then it was really strict. No one allowed backstage. You wear a mask. And then we get on stage and you're playing to a bunch of cars. It was almost like Brave New World or something. And the applause were honks, but from the cars. And most of the people had these small cars, so you had these little high I wanted a couple of trucks, with those big, like in hockey where they have this big low baritone.
Like a foghorn.
Yeah. So I didn't like it. I loved that the people came to see it, but it doesn't work. And then we did one casino in Michigan somewhere. It was an Indian casino. So I don't know if they had some kind of a thing where they had a little get-around thing, but they all wore masks and stuff like that, and that worked. All right, everybody's 6 feet apart. But now, all the gigs we've been doing, everybody is we've sold out all the shows, and everybody's just there like the old, good old rock and roll shows. There's still strict no meet and greets afterwards and all that stuff, but it's wonderful. And for me, I had a year, and after I did that, the motor show, I hadn't sung for like a couple of months, and it frightened me vocally because I made it through, but I just made it through fine. And I get back and I said, "The hell with this! I'm going to sing every day." So 2 hours a day, I sing every day, and my voice I think is better than it's ever been. We have never lowered the keys on the songs, but I was a baritone. Now I sing above high C, which, that's the big note for an opera singer to hit at the end of the thing. Full voice, full chest voice, no falsetto stuff. So it's been a great gift for me, and on that level.
Well, yeah, that's such a great point. I've interviewed a bunch of musicians about, how they were bored at home or just the adapting to pandemic life, but I never even really thought about you sort of lose the muscle memory on the voice pipes there. That's a good point. So you were just singing around the house for like in the shower for 2 hours or around the house?
No, in the living room. My wife has horses, and she's works at a charity hospital for kids and stuff. So I'd be alone, and I'd be in the living room with my guitar and all that stuff. And the difference is I've had about 45, 48 years of singing like whatever I sang on the record. And I just sat there and I started, getting into doing riffs and changing stuff, which I never, ever, ever had done. And I'm having so much fun now. Every night I come out to sing, but now I can experiment because I did it at home and I went, oop, that won't work. And I just feel wonderful about that. So that part of it is great.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were practicing while you were sidelined so that we can hear you in full force out at the Birchmere. I don't think they will be letting cars drive inside the Birchmere to honk at you. I think you can hear some live cheers.
Yeah, but we just finished almost a whole new album. This is insane. It's since 1977, a complete new album. And, we used to always get nailed because, those guys, they don't write their own songs. I was a writer. That's what a writer-producer up to 1965 and Hanna-Barbera. I was on 5 labels as a solo act. And that's all I did was write and stuff like that. So we got nailed on it. The new album, I've written 6 songs. And as you know, following the hits we had, you can't just throw songs out. I know so many good musicians that release albums, and they're basically musical exercises. It all comes down to the song. If you don't have the song, you just have a beautiful bunch of guys playing, and they're great musicians. But that's not going to cut it necessarily, at least for me. So it's been this album is I'm so happy. We can't wait to get it out. It's like genre wise, we've been on about every musical charts except, as I always jokingly say, the jazz charts. But pop charts, rock charts, country charts. Number 1 on the R&B charts. Went to England, Abbey Road Studios, where the Beatles recorded we recorded the London Symphony Orchestra. So, we've been doing it. There's no rookies in the band, so everybody knows how to do it, from ballad to funky R&B. So I'm thrilled. There's a lot of critics, whatever they have, they got their own thing going in their head, but we're still doing it after all this time. And we have a new song. One of the new songs on the album, I don't want to even say. We didn't know what to do with it because we've never done it before, anything like it. And we finally stuck it in the encore. And you know what that's like to put, we have 21 top 40 consecutive hits.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. And we put it in as on one of the encore songs. If we get the encore, it gets a standing ovation every night. It blew our minds. So that will be the surprise for people. So I'm thrilled with the band.
Yeah, you must be doing something right if they're thrilled at that new song in the encore every time. So you mentioned your early days, Hanna-Barbera Records and all that before Three Dog Night. Whenever I have someone like you on, I want to know sort of how you got into it to start with, because you were born in Ireland, but obviously Three Dog Night formed in Los Angeles. How did that jump actually happen?
Well,
like what brought you to the States is my question.
Well, my mother, they had a usual Irish thing going to Boston, but she was the last. She was the baby, and she took care of her mother, so she finally came over. I lived in Boston from 5 to 12, and then my mother, I know, you can edit all that stuff, but you're probably too young to remember the Brinks robbery in Boston. It was the biggest robbery in history at the time. I think Friedkin did a movie on it, and my mother was a landlady that had a trigger. She had a guy named Trigger Burke. So we had police protection for 6 months because he escaped from jail dressed as a woman. And he was finally caught and electrocuted. But anyway,
so you're talking about the Brinks Job. It was a William Friedkin movie in '78. A little bit because he did the French Connection and The Exorcist, and then I think Sorcerer, and then he did the Brinks Job.
Oh, that's right. You were the savant. I forgot. Anyway,
someone Googled me.
Oh yeah, and it was crazy. So my mother had this Mr. Maloney lived on the top floor, and I used to sit out on the steps with him, and he was telling me he was a ranger in the Second World War and all this stuff. He was a real sweet guy to me. Mm-hmm. And then the police came and knocked on the door and said, "Will you, Mrs. Hutton, come downtown and identify him?" And my mother went down, and she went, "Oh, Mr. Maloney," and he went, "Oh, Mrs. Hutton, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry." And he said he would never hurt a civilian. So what he did is they hired this guy, Trigger Burke, an assassin, to the Specs O'Keefe was one of the guys that did the robbery, and they all decided after the robbery they get the money, hide it, and then lay low for a year. He went around the bars and started bragging about it. So they went, "We got to get rid of this guy." So they hired Trigger Burke. Trigger Burke comes, stays upstairs in one of the rooms, and he went and he chased him, caught him. He might have shot him in the leg or whatever, but he escaped. But Trigger Burke was wanted for murder anyway, for shooting a guy, a bartender, in the face because he was making that insane stuff.
Wow.
So about 6 months later, I'm coming home from a movie, the Donald O'Connor. What was that? The movie? She's an ambassador. It was in color, a musical. Whatever it was. Came home and my mother said,
Donald O'Connor?
It was Ethel Merman. She was like, anyway. So I get home and she didn't say we're going to LA. She said, "Honey, we're going to Hollywood." So a week later, we just took the train from Boston, sitting up in the car, to arrive in L.A. And I arrived in L.A. when I was about 12. And that was I grew up basically in Hollywood. When I was at Music City, Wallach's Music City, Sunset and Vine, and they had those listening booths in those days. I don't know if you're a young guy, so a lot of listeners might not know. But they had little booths. You could go on. You could get a 78 or 45. Go to the booth and play the song. They'll let you go on 2 times. And I'm in the booth, and it's right on the street, and Fred Astaire walks by.
Whoa! No way.
Oh yeah, and 2 doors down. Dean Martin's Taylor had a place, with a high collar. I mean, I'm talking about the old Hollywood. And then I was a Catholic kid, so my mother sent me to grammar school. And on Sunday I'd go and I'd always I would stand in the back, not in the pews. All the cool people stood in the back. Liberace and his friend, Spike Jones.
Oh my gosh.
Danny Terranova, which is crazy. He was an extra in Jailhouse, not Jailhouse Rock. Glenn Ford in Blackboard Jungle.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that stuck the American flag into the other guy in one of the scenes. But that was I grew up kind of with all of this old Hollywood stuff. James Fraley walking down the street on Hollywood Boulevard. Little Angie,
wow.
Little Angie, the midget in some of the horror movies. He had a little newspaper stand And he's in movies, but he was still in the corner hawking newspapers.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was wonderful, but you can't tell people. Young people don't a lot of them don't have that. Well, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of them don't understand the history.
Oh, I'm eating it all up. So there you are watching. You're watching Donald O'Connor and Ethel Merman, and I guess it's probably Call Me Madam. And then you move to L.A. and all of a sudden.
Oh, Call Me Madam, yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden Fred Astaire walks by. So you're like, oh my gosh, all these stars I was watching on screen in Boston. Now I'm living with them.
Well, I'll give you a good one, and this is the truth, and you can look it up. So
okay,
Specs O'Keefe, the guy that they were after. I guess he did state's evidence or whatever, so they got off. And then my cousin sends me this thing, that this guy that worked with the FBI, he died, but then he talked about it. Specs O'Keefe ended up in L.A., right? The guy that Trigger Burke tried to kill,
okay,
ended up being Cary Grant's chauffeur.
No way.
I'm not kidding you. How is that? Is that a movie right there?
Yeah, you should have wrote that one.
I know. I'm serious. And I was just blown away. Cary Grant, people say, if you had things to do over again, what would you done? And I said, I would have dressed like Cary Grant.
He had the life.
But you know that he was. I wouldn't say cheapskate, but he was. He was very thrifty. And as far as I know, he made a deal with all the movies that he would supply his own wardrobe. So he would buy the suits and charge them and all that stuff. But every movie I've seen, almost every movie I've seen with him, when you look at what he's wearing, he could walk into a party now and still be current. Not current in that sense, but style.
Heads would turn. Heads would turn. They'd be like, "Who's that?" Yeah.
Well, fashion, which goes out. You got 80s pads in your women under,
shoulder pads.
Everything, yeah, shoulder pads. Everything changes. But anyway, I'm rambling. Sorry.
No, you're preaching to the choir. I love all the movie references. but I know our listeners are. Go ahead.
Always the different ones, but almost I'm old enough. I think 1939. The movies that came out that year were just amazing. I forget what was it. Gone with the Wind?
It is one of the best years. It was. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It was Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, John Ford's Stagecoach. You had Wuthering Heights.
And my
Mr.
favorite,
Smith Goes to Washington.
How Green Was My Valley.
Oh yeah, well that was 41. That was 2 years later.
I didn't
beat
realize.
Citizen Kane. That beat Citizen Kane in 41. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
But
39 is hard.
I watch it. It makes me cry when I see How Green Is My Valley. It's so weird.
By the way, did you know that was we interviewed Alex Trebek a couple years before he passed, and that was his favorite movie. He said so.
Yeah. Well, I'm Irish, so that coal miner when the dad.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, yeah. So yeah, that and what I guess later Ford went back and did The Quiet Man. So yeah, all those Irish movies probably really speak to you.
Also
cool.
I was an extra in Mad World.
Whoa, tell me about that experience really quick.
I just went down a couple of days, and it was a scene in the park. It was just a crowd, and get free lunch, and I forget how much. And it was a thing with Mickey Rooney outside on the building, doing on a fire escape. I don't remember the exact scene, but my brother was a printer, so I knew this guy named Earl Leaf. And he did all the gossip columns for the movies. My mother, I lived in Beechwood Canyon at the time. We still have one of our houses up there. And she worked at a diner called Harry's Diner on Franklin, and everybody used to come in, and Earl would come in, and he did a little blurb. He said, "Oh, Danny Hutton," I forget what the hell it was, but he did the Beach Boys and all these different things. It was just a strange. Anyway, Red, who one of Elvis's guys, he had the 5 or 6 guys, Red, whatever his name was. So I got a kitten from Elvis Presley. So you wanted Shelley Fabre, you know who she was?
Mm-hmm.
The Donna Reed show. So
sure.
now I'm washing dishes at Harry's, and I end up I buy a Jaguar for $900 in 1950. At that time, just an old, it was an old car, but it was cool looking. And I took her to a football game at my high school, and that was crazy. Patty McCormick, from the Bad Seed, I dated her, and I had nothing. I had no money. I don't know. So I'm a Hollywood guy.
Oh, I'm loving all this old Hollywood history for sure. But I know my listeners will kill me if we don't talk a little bit of music before we run. So remind me how the Three Dog Night, how the band came together. Because weren't you originally, you were called something else like Redwood or something? And how did you guys decide? Well, A, how did you meet all the band members? And B,
okay.
How'd you come up with that name?
All right, so I'm at Hanna-Barbera, and I was like the young guy they hired that supposedly had his ears to the ground, knew all the groups. So I would write, play all the instruments, like drums. I would just slap on a leather chair. I mean, that kind of stuff. I was an okay guitar player, but I would slow the track down, play the parts, and then speed the track back up, like what's his name in Fleetwood Mac. All these little tricks. Not that I was brilliant, but I was desperate. So I made all these records, and then I made this. I wrote the song. This song called "Roses and Rainbows," and after I did it, they went, "We're going to release that as a single." And I said, "I'm a studio guy, studio rat. That's not my thing. I'm not an entertainer. All these groups that go out and they play 4 sets a night and they get in the van and they drive. I didn't do any of that stuff. I was just a studio guy." And they went, "We're going to release it. On top of that, we're introducing Pebbles and Bam Bam, these little 2 figures. So we're going to put you into that segment, singing your song on TV with Fred, with them watching you." And then
with the Flintstones.
Beatles type manager comes in and sees me on TV and whatever. So then they booked me on a Sonny and Cher tour, and as a solo act. And I wasn't a performer. I went, what the hell am I going to do? So it was Sonny and Cher, "I Got You, Baby." They had the #1 song. And the first night, it's 5,000 people, and I got there with a guitar, and I said, my knees are shaking, and I said, I'm either going to faint or I'll get through it, and I got through it. So I did a couple of weeks on one of those Dick Clark kind of things, and Len Barry was on the tour, and during the tour, his record, 1, 2, 3, turned into #1. And Sonny Cher, I don't know how happy they were about that, but that was the start. But the opening act was a group called the Enemies, and there was a guy in the group, the lead singer, Corey, great blues singer, and I went, oh my God! So I got to be friends with him. Another guy, the Changing Times, Artie Kornfeld, these 2 guys, and one of them ended up doing the Woodstock, putting the Woodstock thing together. So I got back in town, and Corey asked me to come over, and Tom Wilson, the producer for I don't know if he did Dylan, he did I forget who else he did, but he was the Happening producer. So I helped produce Corey, and I just said in my head, this guy, later I want to work with him. I don't know if the producer did whatever. Then I had 3 regional hits. L.A. They were, a couple of them did well, and then I got cold. Then my manager at the time went to MGM Records. Then he called me and then Zappa and Frank. So Frank, Zappa, and I went to over there to MGM, and then I think I got a top 20 record in LA on that one, Funny Love Could Be. Then he ended up heading Brother Records, the Beach Boys company. So then he says, "Come on up. I want you to meet Brian Wilson." I went up to Brian's house, and he played me a Sloop John B. And I loved the Beach Boys, but I didn't get it till I went up, and he played me part of the Pet Sounds album, and I just thought, oh my God. So I was there during that whole time that he did Pet Sounds, God Only Knows, which is, I think, McCartney's favorite song of all time. I was there. I was there for watching it. Wouldn't it be nice?
You were in studio watching him record it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was there at his house all the time. Wow. We became best. I was his best man at his last wedding.
Wow.
So he's lovely. My son taught his girls, gave them drum lessons and stuff. I mean, he's one of my best friends. So anyway, then I'm not doing anything really except learning from Brian Wilson, who's the best, who's one of the few geniuses. Everybody throws that word around, and he is a genius. He really is.
In every sense of the word, absolutely.
And he's sweet. He's a sweetheart. He doesn't have a bad bone in his body. So anyway, I brought him up. By this time, he's bought the Edgar Rice Burroughs house in Bel Air, and he paints it purple. And actually, I brought Elton up there later. So he's.
Well, you said Elton? Elton John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew Elton when he was Reggie.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. When the first time he came to L.A., I helped him to get the gig at the Troubadour. We took him to the Black Rabbit for his first dinner. Yeah, I don't know how this all happens.
You were a front row seat for everybody. All these stars, movies and music.
Yeah. So anyway, we go and Brian says, "I wrote this song for you called Darling, because you say darling a lot." And he says, we'll call you Redwood. So we did the tracks. We had the bass player from Motown, Brian on piano. We called in other musicians. So we do the tracks. Beach Boys come back from tour, and Mike Love says, "What? Hey, that song we did the rough vocals on it," and he says, "That's a hit," and he was right. I mean, to this day, I would have done what he did. He went, "What are you doing with these guys? That's our songs." They took our voices off, put Carl's on, and it was a hit song called "Darling." You can check it out. But that was me singing the lead. But he probably did it better. Who knows? Anyway, then our manager said, "Look, you guys don't want to be like three guys that go in and have the Wrecking Crew, all these other guys playing. You should be a band." So we went and got a band together, and then we got a call from the manager. Said, the afternoon at Troubadour, I knew Doug Weston, the owner, and they said, "Come in the afternoon." And we went there, and a couple of record companies were there, and we played our set, and the set was, we're just getting together, and it was a lot of backside songs that people didn't really know by art. Like Harry Nilsson had his album out 6-8 months before, and it did okay. Didn't do that well, but it had one on it. So we got it, and I think we're really good at arranging. So we changed stuff up. But then we finished, and then they called us over, ABC Dunhill, and the president said, "I love it. I want to sign you guys. next week go in and record. We said, we don't have any songs yet. He said, no, what you just played is your first album. We went,
wow.
What? And that was the start of that.
And then how did you switch the name from Redwood to Three Dog Night? Isn't that like an old phrase about being a cold night in the outback or something?
Yeah. That was in my house. On a Friday, our manager said, we tried some other crazy names. And our manager said, please, Monday, come back and have the name, something you're going to stick with. So we put down, we had about 50 names, and we all finally voted on Three Dog Night. You know, the number 3, it was visual, the nouns, and it had nothing to do with music, but we liked the sound. I used to get this magazine called Mankind, and they had an article on the Aborigines in Australia. They did the walkabout. They send the kids out at 18 or 19 and for X amount of days and without anything, and they would have to survive. And they would let them have the dogs with them, and then the dogs they didn't build anything, so they would get in the area and they would use the dogs. So cold night they'd sleep with more dogs, but it has nothing to do with the music. But
except it's catchy as hell.
So our manager would go back my day and we tell him the name, and he said, You want a name with dog in it? And it's funny now. You think about how dog is used all the time. Hey, dog.
Oh, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but back then, you guys were you were ahead of the curve on the dog name.
Well, yeah, but you think about the Zombies and all these other crazy names. But after you get used to them, you don't think of that word. You think of the group.
You think of it as its own new entity. It's a Three Dog Night is its own thing. Yep.
Yeah, well, then it's the group.
Yep, exactly. Well, if you have a little time, I'd love to hear about the creation of some of your biggest hits. So, like, Mama Told Me Not to Come, that was on your third album. But how did you guys come up with that one?
Well, we have different stories, but
tell me your version.
Yeah, what is it? It's his version, my version, and then there's the truth.
Right.
What one of the members of the band says that he heard it. He heard it in a bin, one of those things, and it was like you couldn't have heard it in a bin. It hadn't been released yet.
Right.
I think Eric Clapton did it first on some album, but we had no idea about that. And then
I think it was Eric Burden.
I mean Eric Burden. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I better watch what I say. You got it down.
No,
but
it's okay.
yeah, that's good. Then
of the Animals, Eric Burden, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So then I heard the demo, and it was like an oddball kind of thing. I was not really into it at first, and then I must admit, Corey would kind of said, "Yeah, let's do it." I think he did it with his band, kind of a thing. So it was our third album, right? Was it?
Yep, third.
Okay. Yeah, so finally we started, we got in the studio, we got in rehearsal and started playing it. And then we did our thing on it. And I went, yeah, damn, this thing works great. So I remember the record company president kind of came down when we were kind of almost done with that particular song. And he just said, that's a hit. And we went, whoa. All right, we'll go with that. So that's how that happened. But I was a little reluctant when I heard the demo. But once we were in the studio, it's one of those things where the three guys, and I'm an okay singer. The other guys are great because my old feeling is be the guy that makes the phone call to the other guy, to whoever it is, and say, would you like to join my thing? So I always think hire people that are better than you around you. You don't want, be B people hire C people because they always want to be better. A people hire A people. They don't care about, you want just the best of the best. Don't worry about the politics. So that's how we work. So that song just worked, you know.
Oh, absolutely. You surround yourself with the best, and out came Mama Told Me Not to Come.
Well, yeah, but all of them, you know, all of them,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
take me into Joy to the World. I mean, that is one, man, my own. I just smile thinking of my father playing that song. Where do you come up with the idea of a bullfrog named Jeremiah? Like, that's one of the most bizarre opening out of the gate lines, but that song is just an all-time.
For me, it should have been called that, because Joy to the World is a Christmas song, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like, what are you thinking? So we have our management agency, so they bring out. We go on tour and they bring out an opening act. Hoyt Axton is a guy with a guitar, big, huge guy, and he's got this big baritone voice. So our guitar player went to it, and we became friends with. He was our bodyguard. He had a big Cadillac, and we had our bus, and we'd do gigs. He would just follow in his car, and then you go to Texas, and this is 68, 69, and they're doing the long hair. They're you a boy or girl kind of crap.
Right.
And we have a black drummer, right? So we'd go to a club. And, the doorman would go, do his thing. And Hoyt would be there and go, let him in. He was a intimidating guy. So we became good friends with him. So our guitar player, when we're in town, goes to a demo session that Hoyt's doing. And then he invited Hoyt over to where, we're recording an album. Hoyt comes over and he's all kind of sweaty. He'd done this whole daytime morning show on a Saturday for kids, and he had a whole bunch of songs, and he couldn't sell it, so he parsed all of these different songs, and then here he is with this big Jeremiah, and I kind of rolled my eyes and went, holy crap.
But why Jeremiah? Why Jeremiah?
Oh, I have no idea. Ask him. But he did the Pusher. He did the Pusher Man. He did.
Right.
Never Been to Spain. I mean,
yeah.
he's good. But you had to kind of hear through it. Anyway, so we finally said, "Oh, all right, we'll put it. Let's work on it." And so we worked on it. And it was a lot of fun. But that was it. I think we released 2 other singles first on the album, and then we got all of these requests from DJs all over the country saying, "Oh my God, this is they love it." We went, "What?" So we put it out, and it just exploded. I think it sold 10 million singles. We just were amazed, and people say, "Don't you get tired of singing that song?" And I got to tell you, never, because I love the audience. I mean, the rapport between the audience and us is just amazing. To see that many people just sing along, it hit everybody. You never know. I think every album we did, the first song on the first side we thought was the single. I don't think it ever was. It was always like, well, what's the next single? Well, they're saying Old-Fashioned Love Song. What? And we're like this. We're we can do this funky R&B, all this stuff, and it's like, oh God, okay. And you get to love them all.
The audience decides, right? So you mentioned Old-Fashioned Love Song. I think that was on the album after Joy to the World. That was on Harmony. But who wrote that one? How'd that song come together?
Paul Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul Williams, and I should have, it was written by 2 people, and we would have listening sessions, so we would get all of these different demos. Some people come in and play it live, and then we'd have we'd have the no pile, which is huge, the maybe pile, which is less, and then the yes, which was very small. So that ended up being one of the ones we all went, and we all went, yeah, I like it. And the only way we could do it is by all three of us sing in unison. Everybody said that. So that's why that song is three of us in unison. It was like, no, sorry. We knew.
Right. And that same album had another huge one with Never Been to Spain. Have you still never been to Spain, or did you go after that song? Did you go?
Barcelona. Yes, we were there. My wife and I were there a couple of years ago. And that one, we loved it. But now, when I hear it, it sounds like we're on cough syrup or something. It's so slow. We picked up the tempo, and I think it's better than it was as far as the groove. It's so molasses slow.
Well, why do you think you chose to do it like that back then? Just to try something different?
No, just not trying something different. That was the approach then, and it worked. A steel guitar on it and stuff like that. But I think it's better now. It's got a better groove. It's like anything, you do something and years later you go, oh my God, if you're reading something or you've done whatever, you say, oh, I could have, blah, blah, blah. We can. You're doing live. Live is all of the new techniques and what's going on with where you can film, you can do blah blah blah. You cannot replace live. You can't replace it. Live is live. You're on a tightrope, and there's no other way to do it. Live is just it can't be replaced as far as I'm concerned. It's a different animal.
Oh, absolutely. There's the energy between you and the audience that you can't replicate.
Yeah.
We'd be here all day if we go through all of your hits, but I do want to at least mention one more for its social significance. I mean, Black and White, originally recorded by Pete Seeger, but I think it was inspired by the Brown versus Board of Education, the integration Supreme Court.
I had no
right?
idea. I know it's horrible, but let me tell you, the two writers, Robeson, I think Earl Robeson, and the other writer was
Earl Robinson and David Arkin. I have it up in front of me.
Yeah, you know who Arkin was?
He's not related to Alan Arkin, is he?
Yes, his father.
Oh my God, it's his dad.
And Alan Arkin wrote Dale.
He wrote what?
Dale. Yeah, he was. Look it up.
Are you kidding me?
He was. Now look it up. He was like in a white. He was like in one of those white folk groups. Check it out. That was Alan.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
you're entirely right. The Banana Boat song, Deo. He wrote. I had no idea Alan Arkin wrote that for Harry Belafonte.
Hey, you better phone me. I'll give you. I know where all the bodies are buried. Anyway, I'm in Holland, and I went to this guy named Steve Barnett, who was like 18-year-old, incredible promotion guy. A kid. So he took me there. He ended up managing AC/DC and ended up being the president of Capitol Records and stuff. But anyway, we go to Holland, and I get up to my room, and they're still cleaning it. And I said, oh, you know what? Let me just stay in the room, and I'll stay out of your way, clean the room. They had a TV with a radio going, and then I just hear the end chorus of Black and White, and I went, oh, my God, that's a hit. I didn't know anything about the song. I go back to the States, and I'm waiting, 3-4 months. And in those days, you could have hits around the world. There's no internet. So a lot of songs just fell through the cracks. And after a certain point, I just said, hey, man, let's do this song. And I think the original song had 22 verses or something. It was crazy. So that wouldn't work for us. So we ended up doing what we did. When we did the basic track, we did the basic track, and I'm singing. And the first day I tried one way. Second day I tried the second day like West Indian. The word did back there, and this is what I'm a white Irish guy. What am I trying to do?
Right.
Third day, I said, if I cannot sing it, if it doesn't work, then somebody else sing it because I can't get it. And I channeled Gene Pitney. If you listen to it, that real fast vibrato, that's I'm trying to do Gene Pitney, and obviously when you try to do somebody else, it comes out like you, and that's how I get through that song. Anyway,
so the man who shot Liberty Valance, that
you got it.
Yeah. You're trying to do that.
No, I'm not trying to do that, but I had to get some kind of approach, and somebody with a fast vibrato. I mean, I'm going to do the C's. You push it too hard. I didn't want to sound like a sheep, but nothing against him. But
that would have been a different. That would have been black sheep, white sheep. That's a whole different. That's a whole different thing.
Well, like Stevie Nicks does like a fast vibrato too. So
sure.
It's just that kind of a thing is smooth. So that worked for the record, I think. The only thing that bothered me, I was sick. I was out for a few days, and they went in and then they put a bunch of kids on it, which all sound great. Tommy Chong's daughter's on it. She was in, Tommy, what's her name? Chong, the actress. She was on she was in the movie about the cavemen.
Chong.
Ray Don.
Ray Don Chong. Ray Don.
Yeah. Ray was on it. Just all these kids. But I wanted a big sailor, a bunch of guys, which we do now. So it's appropriate there are kids on it, but I thought, I was thinking, I get back and how did we do this on stage with a bunch of kids in the background at every gig? So
infantized it a little bit more than you were envisioning, but in the end,
it was a little sweet, but went to number one. And it's funny, the thing about number one, they say you went to number one. Number one, having a gold single is one thing, but having number one is a bit of luck. Because if you have the Beatles in front of you or somebody that's got a really hot record, your song might be great, but you might be kept number two for 3 weeks, and then you're going back down. You never make number one, but doesn't mean you're the best.
Right. It all depends. It all depends who you're going up against, for sure.
And I think it back. There's no best. Just thinking about the best. What's the best? If you only like 4 songs and you think one's the best, then it's the best. Who's the person that says what's the best? And I get a little. It's just a personal thing. I hope I don't, make anybody angry. But the whole thing is the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. There was no such thing. It's a very convenient way to package a time. The 50s and the early 50s and the late 50s were two different animals. You come out of a big band. I'm old enough. I remember big band. And then the 60s, early 60s, and then 64, 65 came in. And then 78, the 60s ended in like 72, really. And then you get a singer-songwriter, but then you get the disco coming in, then you get the punk coming in later on, all in the same year. So, I managed a punk band after I stopped for a while. So I was
really.
Part
what
of
was
that
the punk
whole
band?
Oh, Fear.
Oh, nice.
I was, Fear. X. All the LA bands, the girl bands. So I was part of that whole thing. I knew the Cramps. I mean, all of that insane stuff. I was part of that whole thing. So people say Free Dog Night, and I just say no, you have no idea.
I had no idea when I picked up this phone. I wanted to talk all your music, and I had no idea you had all this other, Hollywood information at your fingertips. I mean,
I've been around. I'm not even telling you everything. I can't tell you everything. Raymond Burr, I remember being at the hamburger stand with Raymond. Go, no, Raymond.
With who?
Oh, never mind. They didn't say that.
Hamburger stand with Raymond Burr, you said?
Well, my high school, my grammar school was right there, and there was a hamburger stand. All these guys used to, it was just a hamburger stand. Yeah, it was, you know, being a kid. Imagine just early 50s, middle 50s, just growing up. I took one bus from Hollywood Boulevard. In grammar school from Hollywood Boulevard. Take it back. Grammar school, Hollywood Boulevard to my house. It was in the canyons. It was the only canyon that had a bus service. Then in high school, I took it to Hollywood and Highland, and then to the transfer to another bus that went out to the valley. Yeah, it was, you know, different time, but it's just fairly. You would know more about it. It's just was a innocent, marvelous era.
Very
Pat
cool
O'Brien
scene,
on
sure.
Hollywood Boulevard, hanging outside, and there was just, you know, I'd see these character actors, and they all lived off Hollywood Boulevard. There were there's this little guy. I don't know his name, but he had one of those kind of voices, and he was like an evil guy. He'd be on the bus. I'd go, my God.
You're not Peter Lorre.
No.
That's what your impression sounded like.
Oh, well, that's it. He didn't have a German accent, so it's different.
Got you. Well, before we run, I do want to remind our listeners. You know, you were mentioning how the black and white songwriter's son was Alan Arkin, but your son was a drummer for Haim at one point, wasn't it? Was he, Dash?
Absolutely. Yeah, Dash is he's a drummer for a lot of people. He's Haim for Haim.
Haim. Sorry,
yeah.
I always botch that. Haim.
Yeah, no, I know. L'Haim. But it's funny. They were my boys were about the same age, and so that thing of like at 4 or 5 they were playing. They were in bands. My son Tim is our bass player now. So
how cool is that to tour with your son?
Oh, absolutely. What happened is our guitar. 82, we had this other guy came playing guitar, and then Michael decided to rejoin the band, our guitar player. So we just said to the blues guitar player we'd hired, we say, hey, you play bass? He said, yeah, I can play bass. So he played bass for all these years. And Michael said, look, I don't want to tour right now. So Michael stopped. Our bass player switched to guitar, and then Timmy came in playing bass. And we in the 80s, I took all the kids. You know, a lot of the guys in the band, Dan had kids. You know what it's like, and had wives and stuff, and they all divorced. They had these tour, you know, because they were on the tour all the time, and I was a bachelor. So when I had the kids, I said, I'm not going to let that happen. So we had the tour bus, and then my wife and I had an RV. We just followed the tour bus with the 3 kids. So they were on stage, backstage, you know, Beach Boys, with all the different groups, Jerry Lee Lewis, stuff like that. And so, you know, they know our bass player. Tim knows the bass parts better than anybody in the band because he's been so. That's what's going on.
That's great. Well, man, after all these stories, I mean, how the hell are you not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? We got to get. I know you said there's no such thing as greatness, and I agree. You can't rate or rank art. That's my least favorite part of being a movie critic. You got to give a star rating. I mean, come on, you can't rate anything. But
well,
I will say you have to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at some point.
Well, let me tell you, maybe one reason, but Ahmet Ertegun comes up to our house before we're signed, and we do an a cappella song called "It's for You" on our first album. I don't know if you listen to it, that I arranged. It was a Beatles song, and he heard it and he went, "I want to sign you." And they said, "Whoa, that sounds great, Atlantic Records." He says, "But now Aretha did her album for under $1,000." We looked at him and said, But so we turned him down. So that probably, you know, you know this how the Hall of Fame started? Have you ever researched it?
Go for it. Tell me.
A woman at Atlantic, a lawyer, starts it as a TV special.
Okay.
And it slowly morphed into this whole thing. And I think if you look at the early, I'm not positive, but if you look at the early people nominated, they're all like the older Atlantic acts, a lot of black acts, which they deserve to be in it, but it was kind of heavily favored. And then you have a bunch of guys deciding who's going to go in, and the critics said, "Oh, those guys didn't write," for whatever reason.
You're saying you think it's because you didn't write your songs? Is that what you said?
Oh,
there's a bunch of people that didn't write their own stuff in there. That's a bull BS excuse not to.
Well, how about all the Motown acts that did write? I know
exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, but who knows? All I can tell you is I sincerely don't care because we've had, I won't mention names, but we've had a number of people in the Hall of, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that opened for us.
Right.
So
you put them on the map. You put them on the map.
No, they just we're still doing it. This, after all these years. So I mean, some of the people on it, it's like, I don't know. It's like when I think, all right, whatever. But I don't need to be validated by some committee. That's their thing. Whatever agenda they have, I don't want to get into it, but.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the Vocal Group Hall of Fame put you in. There's been some put you in, but you're right. You don't need.
But what is this about? Come on, who are you? Who's anyone to say you and not you? And it's like, what are the rules? Wait a minute. Oh, because what? Just go away. I don't.
Yeah. The only committee that matters is the audience, man. That's the only one that matters.
I love these people that I shouldn't say it the wrong way, that get awards for music, and I always just say, what hit records did they have?
Right.
And the academies have given them awards for musically being, okay, and. As I said, it's. I just know when I walk off stage, I know if the audience like this, and if they have, that's all I'm concerned about. I understand people that go on stage and they just want to do their thing. They say, I don't want to play the hits. I want to be fresh all the time. I want to do my thing. I want to constantly
Right,
and that's fine. Or they're jam groups that want to do that are incredibly talented and they do 12-minute songs. And that doesn't speak to me. It's who is the George played Patton?
Oh, George C. Scott.
Yeah, George C. Scott. I remember reading a thing about him and his wife at the time, I think divorced later. They're doing a play and they get off stage and she's just saying, "Yes, is goddamn. I want to, she's talking about her thing." And he just said to her, "Look, if it doesn't work for the audience, it doesn't count. It's not about you. It's about them." And that's how I feel. I'm there. People have driven. Some of them were married to the song, went to school with the song, got engaged to the song, drove 150 miles to see us, and I'm there for them. I can do a side gig as a solo act and go to a little cafe to express myself on another level, but I'm there for them. I'm there with George C. Scott.
Rommel, I read your book. But no, I love that philosophy, because you're right. People have waited and paid their hard-earned money, driven out there to the Birchmere or wherever, and especially now after this pandemic, they've waited a year and a half, almost 2 years to come see they want to hear the hit. So I love that. I love that. That's your philosophy.
And the food, I'm telling you, I can't wait to always get back to it, because it's a great room. There's every seat in the house. You can, and the sound and the lights. It's one of those wonderful little pockets. When I backstage, walking down the hall to the dressing room, and I see the people that played there. I always tell the agency, look, it doesn't. We're doing 10,000 people in before we do the Birchmere, and it's a different animal, but it's wondrous to be in a place that size, where everybody can see, and you can really feel. You can feel the room, and I love bouncing around doing stuff like that. And I can't believe I'm doing something like that at my age. I'm healthy. Knock on wood. Right, I'll be 79 coming up. I weigh the same as I weighed in 1971. I'm like 6 feet, 160 pounds, and don't do sugar. All of that kind of stuff. Anyway, as I said, knock on wood. It's wonderful. I couldn't be happier right now at my age.
Oh, that's so great. Well, I couldn't be happier with the amount of time you give us. You are more than generous with your time. We've gone over an hour here, so I really appreciate it. Flew by.
All right, you call back. I'll generate some more Hollywood stories if you have another angle on something.
Are there any others that come to mind that you said, Jason should have asked me that one? That one's the best Hollywood story, and he never even asked me.
No, I just have to be triggered. I'll just drive down. I bought Alice Cooper's old house. I'm up in Laurel Canyon, and Mickey Dolenz is next. Mickey Dolenz is next door, and I was at a party with Mickey 2 weeks ago. So he's going out on tour with Mike, with Nesmith. So it's funny. I know he's not next door anymore, but it's that kind of thing. The guy that did the Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason.
Jason. That's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, Freddy. Yeah, but the actor. John.
Oh, Robert Englund.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah, Robert bought his house up there because we had a party on the street, and we hired like a little horse and a pony rides on the street, on a little private street. So he came up and went, "Oh my God, look at this little street!" So we would send our kids over there on Halloween, and they would freak out. Send them over with fudge and stuff. So
Freddy Krueger liked the pony rides down through the neighborhood.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's we could bring that stuff back. We can do a Halloween story on Freddy Krueger and the ponies.
Well, anyway, yeah. I'm here, and thank you so much. And you do. I was going to say you do your homework, but you have your homework in your brain. You know all of this stuff about movies. It's incredible.
Well, by the way, some of it's in the brain, and some of this, when you're talking songwriters, I'm just Googling it really fast to keep us on track. So don't give me too much credit, but I will say the movies are from the brain.
Oh, okay. I love Ricky Gervais, Chappelle, and marvelous Maisel, Miss Maisel. I love that. Jane Lynch lives up the street from us. I don't know if you've watched that show, but Jane is so wonderful. She's so sweet. She's such a nice person, and she always plays these evil people. And she's got another house now up north. My wife has horses, and her girlfriend have horses. So it is what it is.
Man, I feel like this is once upon a time in Hollywood with Hutton.
Yeah, well, I'm an old guy, so that's what happens.
Oh.
But hopefully I'll stay healthy. I don't ever want to retire. as long as I don't get brought down by that, I'm going to just stay out there and do it. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. Well, how do you want to be remembered? You're never going to retire, but how do you want to be remembered when it's all said and done?
My tombstone would be enjoy yourself. It's later than you think, probably.
Perfect place to leave it, later than you think. Danny Hutton, founder and lead singer of Three Dog Night. He's in Annapolis right now, but by the time this interview runs, they'd probably be promoting the Birchmere show in Alexandria, Virginia on Saturday. So, Danny, thank you so much for joining us and giving us so much time and so many great stories. This is priceless.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.